hey everybody, we're here for the Ripple Effect podcast today. I'm Brian, and Mary, our children's minister, is with us, and here in between us, we have somebody we'll introduce more, or allow her to introduce herself more here in a little bit, but this is Carley, and she's from Coyote Hill, and we just, as you know, like to spotlight different ministries and organizations from time to time, and so we'll get to that in our Spotlight of the Week here in a little bit. As you know, we start off almost every episode with a sponsor of the week who doesn't actually give us any money or anything.
We just make it up.
Mary has our sponsor for this week.
Our sponsor for this week is Hearts and Kisses, because you know Valentine's Day is tomorrow. And whether you're single or married, chocolate is always a good idea on Valentine's Day.
And church is not canceled for Valentine's Day. Just letting you know, tomorrow night we're still having our classes as normal. We know all of you probably won't make it because some of you are like the Valentine's Day fanatics, but I don't know.
I have to say, though, if you've tried to go out on Valentine's Day, it's almost better to pick another time to go out because otherwise you're waiting in line for a really long time.
Yeah.
That is
Jess has never been, like, Jess thinks that Valentine's Day is just a big commercial holiday that doesn't have a lot of meaning. Yep. And she would much rather I, like, randomly do things that actually mean something that aren't programmed into the calendar.
Like dishes?
So, yeah, actually, that would be, dishes, remember to move the laundry over and fold it.
Nothing says romance like a household chore.
But anyway, tomorrow is Valentine's Day, and so eat some chocolate no matter what. This past Sunday was our second week of the Intentional Church. And this was a Sunday, and Carly's not here every week for our podcast, but we like to do a little recap of Sunday. And so it was the day we talked about communion and the significance of communion. And we've been going through Acts chapter 2. And so we started out with the Apostles' Doctrine, and then this past week was the breaking of bread or communion and why it's important, what it symbolizes. Did you get to watch it, Mary?
I did, yeah.
What do you think? What's your reaction to the way we did the service?
I really liked it. I think, I know there are some church traditions that don't do it every week, and it's really highlighted when they do it. I think the most moving time for me personally taking communion was after I'd been in China on my own for a couple of years, and then coming back and taking communion corporately with the church family was really special to remember that no matter where you are in the world, there are probably people remembering what Christ has done for us. And we're still in communion, in connection with God and with others, whether we're taking it at home with Pepsi or at church with juice and bread.
Yeah, so we were talking about during COVID, people sometimes, took communion at home. And you went through, like, on the video, okay, this is, the juice or Pepsi or whatever you have at home symbolizes Jesus' blood. It was a really weird time.
Yes, COVID was a weird time.
But it's also, some of those things helped us get out of a rut in the way we do church, which was a healthy thing. Like, passing communion trays is not the only way we can take communion. Having Welch's grape juice is not the only way. They probably didn't have exactly that when they took this,
probably not.
2,000 years ago. So anyway, I thought it was a great morning. We planned the service with more of the worship time, the celebration time at the end, and I really enjoyed that from the worship leading perspective as well. So this coming week, you can look forward to the third sermon in that series, which will be about fellowship. So I'm looking forward to that too. All right, let's get on to our TLCC top 3. These are our top 3 things you need to know about this coming weekend, or not just this weekend, but things coming up. The first one is our youth fundraiser lunch.
Yeah.
What do they need to know about that, Mary?
Sunday, after second service, the middle and high school students are providing lunch. So they have soup and grilled cheese sandwiches, and they'll serve us at tables and clean up and make dessert and all those things. And it's a way for them to earn money for the different events that they can go to or choose to go to throughout the year, whether it's camp or CIY events or college visits or just all the things. It adds up quickly, especially if you have multiple kids in a family. And so this is a way that kids can help earn part of their way towards some of those activities. Mm-hmm. So come and have some lunch and leave a donation.
Mm-hmm. Yep. We always love those because we don't have to worry about what's for lunch.
Yes.
The second one of our announcements for this week is just to pray for those leaving on our Mexico trip. So they're leaving Friday, and they'll be going on their 24-hour drive down to Nuevo Casas Grandes. They drive straight through. They don't sleep. Well, they sleep some of them in the van, but they don't stop at a hotel, drive straight through, get down there, launch right into a busy week. And so I think we have 8 people on that trip this year. So pray for them as they're right now making their final preparations, or maybe by the time you watch this, they've already left. But that trip is leaving soon. The third thing is just to remind you that this is a Connections week.
Yeah.
And the Connections is our monthly newsletter. And we wanted to highlight this, one, because we didn't have other real pressing things on our list, but some of you may have never picked up or received a Connections newsletter in the mail. And as you know, we're kind of streamlining the Sunday morning gathering where we're not reading a bunch of announcements anymore. So the Connections is one of the tools where you get the info about what's going on at church.
Yeah.
You figure out what you need to sign up for, or what events are coming up for your kids. The Connections has almost all that. It also has the fun things that I put in there, like where are we at on the church's budget and all that, if you enjoy those kind of things.
But if you're a card writer, Don always has a list of birthdays and anniversaries in there too. So sometimes people like that so they can see who's got a special event coming up.
So if you're not on the mailing list, you can contact the office, call us, get on our Facebook page, however you like to do that, and let us know your address, and Dawn would be happy to add you to receiving that at your home as we mail it to you. You can also pick one up at the info center. She makes 30 or 40 extra ones and leaves them sitting up there on Sunday morning for those that don't receive it in the mail. You can also go to the website. It's usually the third Sunday of the month. If you go to the website, there's on the sermons tab, there's a sermon link for every week, and it has like questions about the sermon. After it's over, we post a video in case you were out of town or you want to watch it again. But there's always a button that says bulletin. And so usually that's just our regular trifold bulletin. But on the third week of the month, it has the newsletter when you click on bulletin. Yeah. So you can get that whether you like it digital or whether you like it mailed to your home. All right, there's our TLCC top 3. Then we get to the good stuff, and our weekly spotlight is Carley McCoy, right?
Yep.
From Coyote Hill. Daniel does this. I'm not going to get my timer out, but we give you about 30 seconds to just introduce yourself. Maybe say, but you can tell them anything about yourself you want them to know, but maybe how long you've been with Coyote Hill. We'll talk more about the ministry, but you can just do a little introduction to start out.
Okay. My name is Carley McCoy. I am now the area coordinator for Moberly, Coyote Hill Foster Care Ministries, and that is as of last Monday. I am now the area coordinator.
So official.
Yeah. So I've been with Coyote Hill for, it'll be 3 years in June. Prior to that, I worked at Children's Division, so for the state of Missouri, as a foster care case manager, and I am also a foster and adoptive parent as well. We have 4 boys. So
wow.
Oh, congratulations.
Cool.
Thanks.
So Coyote Hill, there's a large portion of those in our church or community watching this even that have heard something about Coyote Hill. They would at least recognize the logo or the name. Some of our people who have been around here for longer basically knew Coyote Hill as homes or they had maybe a lot narrower view of what you all do than what your organization is today. So tell us, like, over the last few years, how things have changed.
Sure. So Coyote Hill started in 1991 with Larry McDaniel and his family. They started the Coyote Hill foster care, or the Coyote Hill Children's Home, and that is out in Harrisburg. It has grown to where there are now 8 homes out there, and that's what we call our foster care community. So it's a bunch of homes out on the same land, all doing the same thing. They're all fostering kids in their home, and they're bigger homes, so they can accommodate up to 8, 9, 10 kids sometimes in those homes. And so up until 2020, we were more of like could be an emergency type of situation. We took on private placements, things like that. But then there were some changes with some laws, and it changed it to where we're now licensing homes out in the community. And so it changed the structure of how things are out at what we call the Hill, our foster care community. And so now all of those homes are traditionally licensed homes. They're no longer staff members. And so it's just foster homes out there in bigger homes, living in community, and being able to just have that built-in support in their own neighborhood. And so since 2020, we have licensed over 200 homes out in the community. We have offices here in Moberly. We have one in Columbia, Jefferson City, and Hannibal. And so all of our homes are kind of all in those areas that are kind of touched by those offices. And so we're just... with Coyote Hill, what our vision and what our hope is to change the landscape of foster care. And so what we've noticed, and what everyone had kind of noticed with the building of Coyote Hill, is that foster parents would quit within that first year because they wouldn't have support. And so what we have and what we've seen working for our families is we have what's called a family advocate. And so every foster family that gets that starts with us and goes through our training and everything like that, they get a family advocate assigned to them, and they kind of just follow along with them and go through life with them during their foster care journey. And so that could be anything of going to court, going to meetings. If there's a crisis, we'll come out. When they get their first child, we'll come out and we'll just be in the home. We'll bring them dinner, stuff like that, just to kind of help ease that transition of going from their family structure to adding kids into their home. And some of us have been called their 2 a.m. friend. If they have any kind of emergency, we're their 2 a.m. friend. We'll come, we'll just answer the phone. We'll be there to listen and support, because caseworkers are overworked. They're underpaid, overworked. They don't have all of the time. And so that's kind of where we want to step in and be that person that they can go to when they need an immediate answer.
So if someone was feeling like foster care was something that they wanted to look into, they could just call Coyote Hill and you would walk them through whatever process that would look like.
Yes. We walk through everything from the very beginning stages of that interest of foster care, as well as all the way through to their end of they've adopted or they've got guardianship or they're just done. And so we really want to just be there for them and be that constant support during this time, because foster care is a roller coaster and you need someone to be on your team. And so being a family advocate it's very eye-opening to have that family advocate coming from another area where we didn't have that. It's very eye-opening to see the difference that you can make just by being able to answer that text message or taking them a coffee and going and sitting with them or something. Just supporting them
Everybody
anyway.
needs somebody on their side.
Right.
Yeah, and we took of course, we walked through the whole process of our licensing and all that with Coyote Hill, but particularly when we took a placement, you just don't always know what you're getting into until you're in it.
We can train you and do all of those things, but then you never know until you're in it.
And of course all those things helped, but having somebody besides the state person who's just there to check the boxes, a lot of times they're way overworked and they give you attention. I'm not saying that. They do the best they can, but the people from Coyote Hill, you could tell, cared, they had a little bit more time. You guys still have a lot of work to do too, but they actually had time to come sit in the living room, say, what do you need? Even from the very beginning of that process, helped us from the moment we were home with our first placement, and they brought supplies to help. And I don't remember. I remember it's some kind of a welcome basket or something. I don't remember the details, but just more than anything, those things like, you have someone on your side, like you say, the advocate, and the stuff mattered, but it was more the people that you could text or call and say, okay, what would you do in this scenario? Because sometimes you try to get that information other places, it takes a lot longer.
Right.
And we really appreciate what you all do. I had, you answered a lot of the questions I was going to ask just in your couple minutes there, but one thing is, if people want to be involved other than, okay, I'm going to be licensed, I'm going to become a
foster parent,
a provider, what other ways can they be involved? Because I know we've helped with some things,
right,
but I want to assume that I know everything. What are ways that people could get involved with things that you all do?
Absolutely. So other than being a licensed provider, there's also things called respite providers, or people called respite providers, and so they can step in when a foster parent either needs a break or an emergency's come up and the child can't go wherever they need to go. Then we can reach out to licensed providers for those children to go to. It could be the night, it could be for the weekend, because as parents you need breaks, and so sometimes people don't have those supports that are willing to take the foster children, and so having people to go to who are licensed providers and have gone through trainings and things like that, it does ease your mind a bit when you can say they're going to go to this person. Yeah. And so being able to have people who just sign up as a respite provider, those are always needed. And it's just a 2-hour training and some paperwork and walkthrough of the home, things like that. And then if we're not at that level, there's always providing meals or doing gift card donations. Any kind of need a child could have, we could always use. Car seats, food, toys, clothes, stuff like that, which we really do partner a lot with Andy at Faithbridge and things like that to get those needs. But there are some times where those are still needs that we have. And then Coyote Hill is a nonprofit, and so we run solely off of donations and some grants and things like that. And so just even having the financial piece and the financial support of individuals is very important to be able to keep doing what we're doing. And we have events. So we do once a month community groups where the foster parents can come. It's a support group for them, and then we have it to where the kids can be watched during that time, and we feed them and things like that. So we need volunteers for those events, as well as we have an every other month respite event. And so that is a 3-hour time period where the foster parents can drop their kids off, and we just love on them, feed them, hang out, all that kind of stuff. And the foster parents get 3 hours of no kids. They can do whatever they want. So, and we have heard from several people that just based off of their own personal situation, that's the only break they get is when they come to community group and when they have our respite events. Yeah. And so we really see those as big, important things for our families. Yeah.
And some of them really need a break.
Yes.
Like when you volunteer for one of these events, you're like, wow.
Right. They live with these kids all day.
It's certainly, they pour into these kids.
Yeah.
And we're exhausted after we help for 3 hours. Right.
Yeah.
So.
And I always like to say when it comes to being able to think of how you can get involved in foster care, we understand not everyone can be a foster parent, but everyone can help a child or a family affected by foster care. Yeah. So there's always ways to get involved.
All right. You have any more questions?
No.
We thank you for coming in. And
thank you for having me.
We obviously have several people in our church who currently or in the past have been invested somehow in foster care. If not a provider themselves, they've been a supporter. And my wife and I have transition right now, at least, to being more of the respite and volunteer. And felt like we figured out in ministry, it is just difficult to do full-time ministry and be a foster provider at this stage in our life. We were having to say no almost all the time. So, but we've also noticed what we have been helping with is almost as needed, like just providing the auxiliary support for the families that are doing it is something that really helps them out, even giving them that 3-hour break once in a while. So I think Mary is going to give us our blessing of the week, and then we'll be done for the day.
I am. So since tomorrow's Valentine's Day, and I'm talking about kids with Carly, I went straight to 1 John chapter 4, starting at verse 7. Dear friends, let us love one another, for love comes from God. Everyone who loves has been born of God and knows God. Whoever does not love does not know God, because God is love. And this is how God showed his love among us. He sent his one and only Son into the world that we might live through him. This is love, not that we loved God, but that he loved us and sent his Son as an atoning sacrifice for our sins. Dear friends, since God so loved us, we also ought to love one another. No one has ever seen God, but if we love one another, God lives in us, and his love is made complete in us. Those have been favorite verses for many years. And I think it boils it down to saying, God loves us. And so we in turn love other people. And it's not about how good they are or how kind they are or how much they need it or don't need it. It's purely God's love that flows through us, whether it's helping foster parents or kids who have had a difficult time in life, or neighbors, or partners or family members that we don't see eye to eye with. God's love can flow through us to them. And that's how we know that we are loving, is because God sent his Son for us, and he loved us enough to die for us. So surely we can reach out and love somebody else, whether it's providing a meal, whether it's writing an encouraging note, whether it's taking in a foster child. All of us can love someone else because God loved us.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Well, that wraps up our episode for today. We thank you for joining us on Ripple Effect. We hope to see you Sunday on either in church or joining us online if you're not able to be here in person. And if nothing else, we'll hope to see you back here on Ripple Effect next week. See y'all later.